to some extent on this bill here today, I think is vital. And we talk about early intervention, and any of us that have children, or teenage children, or indeed, in my own case, grandchildren, and throughout the community, that our young Nadine Oigi, Molly and Oigi, or Chucky Sheet, and that's the old adage spent to us. And there was a huge difference, and it's a much simpler time when they were brought up in their homes with the Mehel, and they hadn't the internet, and we hadn't these perpetrators of heinous crime. So I welcome this legislation to try and protect our children from predators and from people who try to use them for drug trafficking or trafficking them in any shape, make or form. It's obviously very, very necessary. But it's grand to come in and introduce legislation here, as we have with many pieces of legislation, and with this, the justice system, we see where the numbers of enforcement agencies, whether it be in Garda Síochána, whether it be the JLOs, the Juvenile Liaison System, whether it be the Garda Diversion Programmes, they have been ransacked and ravaged by the crash. They were starting to beef up numbers and get fairly strong before the crash in 08, and they haven't got back those numbers in any shape, make or form. Like Deputy Noel and others, I'd want to compliment the Garda Síochána and the different JLOs that we've had. I worked with 2 or 3 of them over my time in politics, and they did some amazing work and do amazing work, but they can't move a mountain. They can't be everywhere. And, Tipperary is was a massive division. Now it's amalgamated with Clare, which is a pure ridiculous situation, and the chief is now based in Ennis. We have to go through County Limerick to get to Ennis. So you're taking away the local connectivity with Garda Síochána, and in this case here to deal with this huge problem that we have with young people being sucked into all kinds of horrific, situations. And drugs alone, it's just scary. And we're all aware of it. It's not anecdotal that young people are being used as mules. In my own county, Tipperary, places too, I hate using that name, but to transport drugs, as young as 8 and 9, cycling and around everything else. We're also aware that, when there's of different cases where the Garda Síochána have made extensive searches, that drugs were sent in school bags to school, away from the place location to evade. They've been detected. So when people are prepared to do that with young people, their own people even, families, it's just beggars belief. And we're kind of sleepwalk. We have to sleepwalk into this situation because, as Deputy Noel mentioned, Laois Offaly, our drugs task force in Tipperary is diminished beyond all recognition. Places like the town of Clonmel, Carrigan, Shure, every town and village in the country has a drug problem, as we know. But to try and nurture and save our young people is what this bill is meant to be about. And Section 2, yes, I agree with the provisions in it, and I welcome it. But how are we going to have the personnel? Are we going to have the resources? Are we going to have the different government agencies like TUSLA and other agencies that should be involved here? And indeed, we all mention education, and it's very, very important. Of course, it is from the cradle to the grave. But, the schools' curriculum is already, stretched and overboard. So we're going to have to change our curriculum to try and deal with Nadine Ogi and people that could become vulnerable and will become vulnerable. And the demographics there that will tell you what kind of demographics or what kind of situation they come from. So the bill, as I said, is necessary, but we need to have resources and we need to support the JLOs. As I said, one JLO for half a county cannot deal with, and they deal with people, and they've done great work. And the Garda Diversion Programmes have done great work. But as I said, they're not complemented now with staff. So we must also look at that. I have situations now, and it's a matter of the public airwaves about outlets and food outlets being tormented with young people, and you hate to see it. But TUSLA, it's been when they're under 12, the Gardaí can't deal with them, and TUSLA seems to think that. I don't know, not saying they seem to think they have no responsibility, but they don't have any responsibility. And I have many issues with TUSLA, many issues, serious issues with TUSLA. But in this area here, you know, it's been all over the public airways. People in on and managements of the outlets are just cannot deal with the situation. And then the Gardaí are involved, and they can't deal with it. And the young people, it's a pity. It's an awful pity to see that happening, because we don't want any young person or child to be induced or indeed seduced or indeed encouraged in any way. And I welcome that provision in the bill as well, to make that an offence. And it's very, very important. But as I said, how are we going to engage with Nadine Yoga? How are we going to engage? You know, many of these might be outside the school system as well. And as I said, TUSLA would normally have responsibility for, you know, children in any kind of danger. But in this area of criminality, they don't seem to be able to deal with it. And, you know, just serious questions have to be asked about the resources and the tools of the trade for the officers of the law, and indeed whatever new officers we encourage. It's not all about uniform Gardaí coming in. We must kind of a Mullinoi or Chucky Sheet. We must try and encourage them and stimulate them, and youth clubs have to be supported and try and get them into situations like that. But we're failing, and that's, I'm talking about my own county, so I'm sure it's no different than many other counties. And there's a highly professional drug trade going on, and they don't mind whether it's very old people or very young people they use to further that trade. And it's very sophisticated, hugely financially rewarding, and I don't know, is this legislation, not on its own certainly, going to tackle it, because the children, as I said, are put in huge danger, obviously to themselves and to everybody else, and to enter into life that they know better. And, you know, it's serious, crisis point in many areas, and people just seem to want to ignore it, but you can't ignore it. We must all have a duty here in this house to do it, and we can, to protect our most vulnerable and our young people and get them on the right road. Which was different than our time we were young. We got, you know, and we could get different ways of being dealt with, but we were encouraged, and there wasn't the proliferation of drugs and other heinous issues that the children are using, child sex and pornography and everything else. That wasn't there. Not that I was aware of any, but because of the internet and all the new ways of possessing this and indeed using it wrongfully. And we need the legislation, but legislation on its own won't cut it unless we have huge resources, and we haven't. We see the issues with recruiting our Gardaí into Templemore, and we see then the community Gardaí, who would have a big role in this area. They have been diminished hugely as well. And they did tremendous work. Tremendous work. I could name some here, but I won't. Tremendous work in the communities, and still do. But their numbers have been greatly diminished. Greatly. I think we have 2 now in Clonmel, a huge town like that, where we had a sergeant and 5 in just a couple of years ago. And they are the people that get into the communities and go in and involve in community activities, youth clubs, homework clubs, visits to schools, sports days, whatever. And they got involved. But they can't do it, they haven't the numbers, they haven't the resources. So we're losing the game. We are losing the game, and a lot of catch-up has been played. But as I said, we need this. We need stronger and more robust legislation than this as well to deal with that. And a whole sea change of attitude towards what is going on. Not the nod and a wink and a blind eye and let it carry on, should look as fine as underworld there. It's going to have massive consequences. So I'm supporting this legislation, but as I said, I don't believe it goes far enough.